First of all, thank you, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Events Group September meeting, which is all about making AI work for you rather than the reverse. I'm Robin Raskin. For those of you that don't know me, I run the Virtual Events Group. We do two things. We help everybody make better events and conferences that are tech forward and engaging wherever they are. And we also do a lot of consulting and creation of our own events. I thought about today's event. First of all, happy end of summer. We took August off. I hope you all had fabulous summers. Our one new announcement is Gigi, who's always been at every meeting with me, happens to be my niece, and my right arm is now Mrs. Hewitt. She had a wedding just a week ago. So I hope you all had as many happinesses as we had this summer. The show we did just before the summer break was on deep fakes. And we taught you all both how to use tech and how to use your education and your brains to find out what was fake and what wasn't in images. The next time we see you, we will have a new president. I urge you to think carefully about what we said about fakes and deep fakes and use every skill in your book and get to those polls and do whatever you think is right. This is not a speech or a stump campaign, but there's a lot of fakes going on out there that are quite serious. So you can relive that conversation if you want, that conversation from July. So here's how I was prompted to do this. How many of you have gone to a ChatGPT prompt and sort of looked at it like a blank canvas, like, what am I supposed to say? And most of us have figured out how to ask it the simpler things in life. I'm going to read you a note that I get almost daily from, I know a lot of geeks, and I'm going to read you a note that sort of sparked this conversation. It's from Jeff Procyse, an engineer down in Tennessee, who wrote, "This weekend, I wrote an app that converts PowerPoint slides into images, feeds the images into ChatGPT-4 to generate narrations in the style of a skilled presenter, inputs the narration into OpenAI's Whisper mode to convert the text to speech, and plays the narration." That just eliminated a lot of steps and potentially a lot of jobs. And basically, the guy has uploaded his slide deck and created a professional presentation in just a few commands. So many of us are stuck at this blank page, one command. So we're going to make AI work for you rather and get past sort of the simple things we do. We kind of treat it as a glorified search engine right now. You know, we'll say, show me all the tech events coming up in the next year. Find me a good date for my event. That's kind of about as advanced as I get. We're all at different stages. So I want you to either type in the chat window or raise your hands. How often do you use AI? And the question and the D answer, who knows? It seems just to show up in what I'm doing is actually really prevalent now. I'm sure you've all experienced, whether it's Gemini or Copilot or whoever it is that's thinking it knows what you want to say next. So I think those answers are varied. Have you upgraded to a paid version? And we see daily multiple times. I don't see many paid versions. Yes, for a few of them. Yes, ChatGPT. Okay, so we're getting a lot of upgrades. Think about this or type in the window as we talk. What's the most useful thing that AI does for you? Because I'm going to introduce our speakers in a minute who are going to show you how they use it. And I think it's going to blow your brains out. Some of you are answering it does nothing for you. Okay. Let me see if I can make my PowerPoint work here. Okay. Now, do we hate a lot of what we do, and we don't know it's AI, as we talk to chatbots? You know, I talk to my tech support people all day, and the experience with chatbots is getting better. They're actually, some of them are pretty good. Recent study shows 11% of people really hate these things, and there does come a point where a chatbot should get educated about passing you over to a human. Some of the AI headaches enterprise-wide. Now, we hear this from a lot of people. The big one is businesses wanting to start with AI says, I don't know where to start. Where in my process? Where do I start? And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to talk about guardrails. I've seen kids' toys now powered with ChatGPT, like a teddy bear that will tell your story, whatever your kid wants to hear. Guardrails and safety, whether you're 3 or 83, have to be put in place. We have an extreme lack of talent. We all got smart at the same time, some of us faster than others. I'm going to show you 2 of them in a few minutes. 85% of all AI projects fail. So we're at that stage right now where just a small fraction of what we actually implement and try will work. 50%, half of companies have adopted at least some AI in one function. So we're getting there, but still really infant. And again, only 34% of consumers even know that they're experiencing AI. But when you grill them down further, did Copilot come up, etc.? Oh, yeah. So a lot that we have to know. If anybody wants this data, I can get it for you. So today we're going to look at implementation. How do you get AI to work for you in ways that are a bit more sophisticated that can really help your businesses? 2 speakers. I've got Mike Colombo, who you'll meet in a minute. Mike is an old friend from the Make magazine days and the Maker. He's an NYU ITP graduate, and he is working for a large instructional design firm, whose name I cannot reveal, to create courseware. And he's put AI to work in some novel ways. Gary Oppenheimer, another old friend, and this is like our dirty secret. Gary and I were neighbors on a houseboat on the Hudson River in the, I can't even remember what years, 79, 81, 2, 3. We lived on the river together. He was my next door neighbor, which meant when he breathed, I could hear, and vice versa. I called him my surrogate husband at the time because I was raising kids and the husband was never home. And Gary has gone on to be a wonderful philanthropist, amongst other things. And he'll talk about his not-for-profit, ampleharvest.org, and how he has done yeoman's work with a very small staff thanks to AI. So before we start with them, I just wanted to give you a little heads up onto what we're doing. In October, we will not have a veg meeting, but we invite you to come join us at Wall Street Green Digital. And it is a 12-hour virtual event that starts in Singapore and ends in San Francisco. I kid you not. It looks at 35 speakers from around the world who are out to change climate tech with their creations. We're kind of proud that we put this together virtually. We think the virtual platform for this kind of thing is great. And so we hope you join us there, Wall Street Green Digital. We charge $25. If it's a hardship, just let us know. In September, we'll see you. In January, we'll see you at CES. At CES, we are building a creator space on the show floor. So think about what that is. Think about what the press room used to be, kind of hidden behind somewhere. You had your meetings in a secret hideout. The creator room will be right there in the show floor, right in Central Hall. We will have all sorts of gear for creators to try out, all sorts of networking for them to have with the vendors that are there. And their purpose is to amplify the content that will be at CES, not unlike the Democratic National Committee used creators. So we're pretty excited to be building that. We're also running retail tracks, robot tracks, and lifestyle tracks. So have any questions about that? Let us know. Then we move to Silicon Valley Video Summit. If you are an AV pro, geek, performance person, events person, this is about the making, the magic that happens behind an event. And we had a great time doing this last year. We do it at the San Jose Computer History Museum. And it's really great fun. So again, January 28th, let us know if you're interested. And finally, at the NAB show, we run a creator lab for a really different reason. NAB stands for National Association of Broadcasters. Well, the term broadcasters has really changed. And we're looking at a new generation of broadcasters where, in fact, their phone, their camera looks something like, I can't switch back to me. Look, let me get back to here. This is what they use to produce everything from their TikToks to their full-length films. So we are trying to make that accessible to everybody. And again, this is our third year at NAB. If anybody's interested in working with us, creator, vendor, we're pretty excited. So that's what we're doing. You'll see us in our weekly newsletter. But now what I really want to do is go back to introducing Mike Colombo. He will speak first about what he's doing with instructional technology. And then Gary will speak about the nonprofit sector. So thank you and welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much, Robin, for the introduction. Much appreciated. Just going to share my screen right here. Yeah, like Robin said, I'm going to talk about how I have been using AI to craft learning experiences and the challenges that arise in the process. I have been working on a contract basis with a large online adult learning company to deliver coursework and using AI in the design process primarily. But before we get into that, just going to talk a little bit about myself, how I got here. I actually started out as a musician. You may see a guitar behind me. I try to pick it up at least a little bit every day. And I played in New York City for a long time and then ended up, as Robin said, at ITP, which is an interactive media graduate program at NYU. And there I built a musical instrument called the magnetotron, which is, you can see me playing over on the upper right, which is based on audio cassette tape and this rotating drum. And while I was there, since I was working with my hands on electronics, I ended up getting an internship and then a position at Make Magazine, where I wrote a lot about fabrication, electronics, a lot of DIY type things. If anybody's not familiar with Maker Faire, I mean, it was really an incredible movement at the time, like around, 2010 to maybe 2014, around there. And what happened was that I found that since I was writing all of these tutorials, I didn't even realize it, but what I was doing was instructional design. It was creating lessons for adult learning. And I parlayed my experience into a career. I worked at Apple, I worked at PG&E for a while on a variety of different topics, and essentially just learned on the job how to do instructional design, and then married that with the technical experience that I had and started getting into emerging technologies. So now we're up to these these dudes with the rifles. This was a company called Nomadic, which was a free roaming VR immersive experience where you wore a backpack PC and roamed around this 40 by 40 foot space with a bunch of motion capture cameras above you that tracked your every movement and all the movement of the objects that were in the space. And I ended up doing all of the technical documentation, and I did the retail space training for them as well. Following that, I worked at a company called Transfer, where we did instructional design for adult learning, like middle skill jobs in VR. And I was the number 3 employee there. We ended up doing over 250 different simulations, and I ended as a director of experience design there. And since then, I have been contracting in instructional design in VR and in AI. The common denominator has been always interested in the latest trends in tech that enrich and educate. So what has been the AI challenge for instructional designers that I have encountered lately? I mean, first, we're looking at rapid generation of learning content, which is a blend of traditional instructional design and AI to create coursework, iterative refinement, using AI to take, say, a document like a storyboard and just flip it on its head and reimagine it like faster than we ever have before. However, this is a disruption to well-practiced methods. I mean, the field of instructional design goes all the way back to World War II, when servicemen were being trained. So the way that we've always done it is very much ingrained in this industry. So speaking of process, the ADDIE model is what we use, and just really quickly, so it's analysis where you decide what you're going to teach. It's design, which is pretty self-explanatory, and that's what we're going to focus on today. There's development, which turns that into products, implement, shipping the product, and then finally evaluate, which is once it has shipped, you take a look at it, using data analysis and doing surveys, and then you go back to the beginning. It's actually a circular process. So let's take a look at design specifically. And I may be going a little fast. If anybody has any questions at any point, just let me know. Any questions so far about this? No, we're good? Okay. So design. We create the initial design documents. This is like a draft or a storyboard. So the ID, which is an instructional designer, that's what I'll use for now, it will dictate the course requirements to the LLM. So in this case, we're using Gemini as opposed to, say, ChatGPT. The SME, or subject matter expert, will look at that and review it and then iterate upon it until it is to his or her requirements. And this is all at a point in history where most of us are novices with the AI technology. So it's like the Wild West right now. So one framework that is used not only in instructional design, but in other types of authoring is called RACEF. So you can see, like, basically what you want to do, like, say, the example that I'm going to use is we want to create a live video that's educational, right? So this is how we're going to structure it. And this is sort of what makes the most sense for the LLM to digest and then output something that is going to be useful to you. So the AI is going to be an expert graphic designer, and then is going to create a video script about branding, which is a part of graphic design, right? The steps is that we're going to do this for high school graduates, and then we're going to have some learning objectives to define what they're going to come out of it at the end. Now, this will be a larger series of courses. Examples of branding could be Coca-Cola, FedEx, or the virtual events group. Hey, you never know. And the format is dialogue that will be preceded by the characters' names with a colon, and production cues to separate should be in bold. At the very basic level, this is what a RACEF prompt would look like. And we're going to use this to try to create this live video script. So we have a prompt that's fully developed all the way on the right there. And you can see that it ends up being a lot longer than what we had just looked at the slide before. And we're going to take a look at that and talk about it. So there's the long tail of draft refinement, the sort of details that you add on, and instructional considerations need more detail, but you still need to keep it as succinct as possible, or else it starts to sort of break down. So you can see here, can folks read that?
You can go
Yes.
one. Yeah.
One more? Okay. So this is, like, you can see sort of the basis of the RACEF that we already did. We created learning objectives here that gives the LLM direction. We have our audience here, right? But the further down that you get, you say like, oh, you know what? We're going to do like, some voiceover for some of this, or we're going to have actors and they need to know technical terms. So we need to have pronunciation as well. All right, so let's add pronunciation. And oh no, we need hands-on projects and case studies. Use clear language. And all of this starts to, this is what I said is the long tail. It starts to kind of get added on as you put it into Gemini, and you realize like, oh no, this is not what I wanted. Like I want extra details. However, if you start adding too many things, then the LLM, like to put it in layperson's terms, only has so much attention, and it may not pay as much attention to one of the commands that you're giving it as opposed to another. So you need to sort of balance it in a way. It's sort of hard to describe, but it comes with experience. And so we can take this and then actually put it into Gemini. And then we get our script, which is pretty great. So usually you may have a need to do, say, 20 scripts. So you found your RACF, you say, this is what works. I only need to alter certain parts of it, and then I can just kind of, season to taste. So you're gonna do other fun things like say Alex, well, I don't like his voice, like it's kind of bland. So I can say, execute the prompt again, but make Alex sound like Porky Pig. I mean, we would never do this, but oh, actually, that didn't work. Okay. So, but you get the idea. Oh, actually, it says that he's parenthetically Porky Pig, but I don't think that this works exactly. But a lot of times you can play around with different characters rather than saying like I want him to be mean or I want him to be happier. So anyway, any question? So it's like the basis of this, like, but in instructional design, we do this for e-learning, we do it for readings, we do it for quizzes, and it all kind of starts in this RACF methodology. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question. So let's just say you get through a quarter of this and you want to quiz them and see how did they absorb what it is you're trying. You do that the same way. You start all over again with the RACF and the role and say, this is a quiz.
Yes, you can. So, I mean, what you can do actually is you can take the prompt that you put in and then the content that you have and say, based on the content that's being taught in this particular script, I want you to create 10 multiple choice questions that cover the learning objectives. And then you create a custom prompt that's going to do that for you as well, and for all different types of coursework. So yeah, it's like you end up having like a library of prompts to do this type of thing. Let me go back to the deck. So it's funny, as Robin said at the top, AI is not a search engine. It's not a chatbot. You can use them as those, but it's really, to me, like an intelligent extraterrestrial who helps you build things. And you need to learn how to speak their language. I don't know if anyone is familiar with, was it The Day the Earth Stood Still, Klaatu Barada Nikto, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind? They're both sci-fi examples of using odd ways to communicate with extraterrestrials. And you need to think of how to do prompting with AI in that sort of way. So you're a writer as engineer. for me, I always wanted to be a computer programmer. I was never that great at it, but I can think logically, and I can use that for my prompt engineering. I remember having to write in MLA format, HTML. This is just another format. It's the same type of thing. Um, that that second bullet there is like a little secret weapon that I love to use if something is not going well. I say, ask me clarifying questions until you're 95% certain you can complete the task successfully. And the LLM will actually be like, okay, you weren't clear on this and that. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I was vague. Okay, let me answer your questions. And there was one other thing about tricking the AI into changing doc length. Because of how AI uses tokens, it doesn't really look at length and time the same way that we do. So you have to do things like, oh, give it more detail or more descriptive words, or I want you to be more succinct in the way that you say this. So things like that, and it will start to get the idea. In that way. And those are just a few things that I've picked up along the way, which have helped me. Any questions on that? Okay. So what effects does this have on production? Experts, the subject matter experts, like I said before, are now reviewing rather than authoring, and with rapid iteration. The way that this used to be was you would have several meetings with the SME who usually they're just in the industry, they're contracted out. So they'll have a full-time day job, and you would need to you would have trouble getting their time in order to help draft these things and fact check them. Now that you can essentially use the AI as your SME, all you need is the SME, the actual SME, to verify it for you and make sure that it's factually correct, right? Which is a complete game changer. Yeah, and while you're doing this, you have to remember that you treat the AI again as a tool, assist me rather than do it for me. Don't phone it in. It is so easy to fall into this pitfall of wow, I can have the AI do everything. You still need everything to be verified by human beings, both from an instructional level and if it's graphic design or whatever the particular domain is. So the best case for AI in ID projects are relatively common learning topics like graphic design that have a lot of reference material. If anything is specialization, like the fuel injection system on the latest John Deere, AI is probably not going to help you as much. At least the standard products that we have now, like say Gemini or ChatGPT, which is to say that if you don't have a corpus, you don't have the coursework. So that's important to remember. Yeah, and I can just go over this part quick, but this is just looking ahead. Intelligent tutors using AI is a whole other field in instructional design. The risk of hallucinations was big. I actually worked with a company that were oh, well, if an intelligent tutor is going to hallucinate every once in a while, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it is a big deal. You can't be teaching kids the wrong thing and then have them failing their tests. It has to be bulletproof if you're going to use intelligent tutors. But that's being mitigated by post-processing validation. AI generation of end-user coursework, like e-learning and slide decks. We already talked about this a little bit. There's a company called Articulate, which in the chat there should be a link to how they're integrating AI into the e-learning platform that they're using, not just doing it in docs like I've been doing it. And then just prompt engineering as a skill for any tech worker. How we all had to learn the internet, or we all had to, or people said, oh, I'm not a computer person. Yeah, you know what? You can't say I'm not an AI person. It's it's not going away. This is going to continue to be a really useful and valuable tool. And in my case and in my profession so far, it's made for better learning experiences. So that makes it worth it to me. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
That was humbling and unbelievable, and I think it translates to whether you're we had a graphics prompt engineer, as I mentioned, on the show, and the advice was similar on how to talk to your AI. So let's get a different view now. We're going to invite Gary Oppenheimer, ampleharvest.org, to take the stage and show you how he's doing some amazing things with a very few people to run a very big nonprofit.
Robin, thank you. And Mike, thank you for the warning about the John Deere. I just bought one a few weeks ago, and now I know I can't use AI to help me with it. So I have a presentation I'm going to run through to explain ampleharvest.org, which needs some explanation. That's the name of the nonprofit. Then I'm going to talk about AI and how ampleharvest.org is applying it. And lastly, I'm going to talk about hallucinations, which seem to be the topic du jour, but these hallucinations actually came up as I set up the presentation. So let me get to the share mode here. Are you seeing it now? Okie dokie.
Yes.
Thank you. So ampleharvest.org is focused on thinking differently. I want to start with that. This is not a nonprofit of a format you've ever come across before, and that's not hyperbole. So try to picture cabs from way in the past, taxi cabs today, people in the past looking for a taxi ride, people looking for a taxi ride today. They were both seeing this. You're a passenger or a person needing a lift, and there was not a yellow cab in sight. Or you're a cab driver, you see nothing but yellow cabs, so no passengers in sight. This is how things used to be. This wasn't a transportation problem, though. This was actually an information problem. And along come Lyft and Uber and other similar services that are solving this transportation problem by using information to connect a driver with a vehicle to a passenger needing a ride. It was an information solution to transportation. Ampleharvest.org is in the same boat, but when it comes to food insecurity. So quickly, I want to give you a primer. On the left, you see where the food banking system gets food from. It's all over the place. Government, farms, restaurants, your generosity, etc. The food goes to a central food bank, then from there, like a Feeding America food bank. Then it goes to a local food pantries, and then it gets to hungry people. That's the architecture of America's food safety net. 44 million people in this country are food insecure. And when they go to a food pantry, more often than not, they see shelves with jars and cans and boxes, but rarely, if ever, fresh food. 62 million people, by the way, that's up from 42 pre-pandemic, are gardeners, not farmers, but people who are growing food for pleasure and not profit. And the kicker is that these gardeners and these food insecure people are neighbors living side by side across the country. These are two real gardeners, by the way, but on average, the gardeners are growing 270 pounds of surplus food, more than they can use or preserve and share with friends. And they've hated wasting that food, but they always thought they couldn't donate it. And so it was forced on their neighbors were left to rot. And ampleharvest.org was created in May of 2009, 15 years ago, to solve their problem. So, and by the way, I was named CNN Hero in 2010. This was an email that I got from somebody who had not heard of ampleharvest.org. The prior year, he had thrown away 8 55-gallon drums of citrus from his property, just to give you an example of how severe the problem was across America. So I built ampleharvest.org to change the landscape so the food didn't go from varied sources to a regional food bank to local programs to hungry families, but it flattened the system to go right from gardeners to local programs to families on the same day basis. This was not a food problem. This was an information problem. And ampleharvest.org to me was itching for an information solution. Now, I'm an aging geek. Carrie and Robin and I go back to the 40s when microcomputers were, just beginning to come out, and email stuff like that. So working in this tech space was sort of natural to me. The misinformation is that gardeners always hated wasting their surplus food, and they thought they couldn't donate it. We all heard jars, cans, boxes, but no fresh food. Food pantries desperately needed that fresh food, but they thought they couldn't accept it, and they thought they needed costly refrigeration. We had that misinformation. The missing information was that gardeners didn't know where to find a food pantry or when to donate. The food pantries didn't even know gardeners had food to donate. This was the landscape. So the problem we had was that the food couldn't be accepted by the system. And March 2009, I woke up with a solution, flattened the system, and realized I could educate gardeners that could donate the food. I could create a custom-built search engine and food pantry to receive it, introduce just-in-time inventory to eliminate the need for refrigeration, and then get out of the way. And for the rest of the gardeners' life, they would be donating the food. This was a cloud-based solution, Uberizing the food system, connecting the gardeners who previously couldn't donate and were wasting food to food pantries in their community, but then the food went directly from the garden to the food pantry to the hungry family. That's the ampleharvest.org model. We never, ever, ever touched the food. Gardeners across America, millions of them have been donating. Today, more than 8,200 food pantries in 5,600 communities in all 50 states are donating food, including on Native American reservations. And it's a very simple process. You come to the website, ampleharvest.org, by the way. You say you want to donate food. You put in where you live. Up comes a food pantry near you with all the information that you need for donating, including the location, times of donation, and other things that'll be helpful for you for donating it. Every presentation needs an ugly slide, and this is it. A Harvard-trained economist determined that if every gardener in America knew they could donate food, and every food pantry in America could receive it, America's healthcare costs would drop $58 billion a year, reductions in diabetes, obesity, hypertension, etc. This is a huge potential impact for the health and, by extension, wealth of the nation. So this is how ampleharvest.org has grown since I rolled it out May 18th of 2009. Today, as I said, 8,200 plus food pantries in 5,600 communities, plus Alaska and Hawaii, which are not on the map. Every one of those dots is a food pantry that has signed up on ampleharvest.org and said, hey, I'd love to get the fresh food. Hey, gardeners, come to me. So now, where does AI come into the picture? Let's go back to this map for a second. This is just using different pins. It's more clarity on it. You can see where we've had good penetration in the eastern half of the country and the West Coast. In the middle, there's a lot of blank space, which really bothered me because hunger's in every county, and gardeners, the 62 million, they're every place across America. What wasn't going right? And one of the questions we've also asked, well, where are the gardeners? And I said, I don't know. Gardeners are all over the place. Our biggest corporate partner, aside from Google, is an amazing company called Bonnie Plants. Bonnie Plants is the largest supplier of seedlings, tomato plants, pepper plants, whatever, in America. And Bonnie Plants was kind enough to share with ampleharvest.org all the retail outlets, all 16,000+ retail outlets that they deal with, whether they are, the big box Home Depots or whether they are mom and pops. And you can see they're spread across America. And I realized at a certain point that every one of those dots is a proxy for where are their gardeners. No one's going to have a garden store if there are no gardeners in the area. So that dot tells me there are gardeners there, and that dot tells me we should have ampleharvest.org food pantries. There was an epiphany that I had. So I'm right now in New York City with Robin. And this is what it looks like if I was somebody on ampleharvest.org and I wanted to donate food to a food pantry. And you can see we have a great number of food pantries across the 5 boroughs of New York and in New Jersey. And by the way, if somebody wanted to donate to Broadway community, they would click on it and they'd get all the information. Much of America looks like this. But then there are parts of America that look like this. This is southwestern South Dakota. And the Pine Ridge Reservation is to the right, Rapid City's to the north. And I selected the town of Hot Springs because I wanted to. And that one star there on Hot Springs happens to be the location of a garden center that Bonnie Plants told me about it. Ace Hardware Garden Center sells Bonnie Plants and soil and gloves and shovels and whatever else. And I looked at our resources, and we had no food pantries near, near hot springs, meaning that gardeners in hot springs who wanted to donate food couldn't donate food. It's our goal to try to get food pantries in our system nearby so the gardeners would actually donate. So I drew a circle around hot springs. That's approximately a 10-mile radius. I don't think gardeners will travel more than 20 minutes to actually donate. So you have to keep that circle reasonable. So the question is, we have no food pantries in ampleharvest.org in or near hot spring. So I just want you to know that hot springs, 15% of the people in hot springs are food insecure. The county to the right, it's 28% food insecure. By the way, on that South Dakota map, the darker the green, the more significant or severe, I should say, food insecurity is. So I took the time myself manually to look up on Google and other sources, are there food pantries in the Hot Springs area that have not yet joined Ample Harvest Oregon? Lo and behold, United Churches, Hot Spring Food Pantry, Corner, Meals. We have 4 of them that are there, and they're not part of ampleharvest.org. Now, a food pantry becomes a part of ampleharvest.org by, number one, they hear about us, whether it's through Feeding America or Google or whatever, and they come and sign up. We don't throw any food pantries into our system. They have to actually sign up, which means we need to get information to them, but we clearly never heard of these food pantries. So I can now say as a win that we'll be able to reach out to these 4 food pantries in by the Ace Hardware Garden Center in Hot Springs, and that little piece of America is solved. My problem is we have 16,000 garden centers across America, many of whom have nearby food pantries and thousands of which don't. And our small staff of 4 people have no capacity to go garden center by garden center by garden center, going on Google and looking up the food pantries. And this is where AI comes into the picture. So I did something. Please don't try to look at that equation. It may give me a headache. This is an Excel spreadsheet. In the left-hand column, I put in 8,000 at the time Ample Harvest Org food pantries with their longitude and latitude. And going across the top, I put in 16,000 garden centers across America with their longitude and latitude. And in every cell, I put in this equation. This equation, just so you know, will measure the distance in miles between one row and one column. So I could see basically, is a garden center, is a food pantry within 10 miles of a garden center? That's what I wanted, because the ones that have no nearby food pantries, that's a target. Google didn't like that. I'm sorry, Excel did not like that. This was 131 million cells, and my desktop computer said, you're not doing this. And Google Sheets couldn't do this. And I realized I need this information, and Excel, which would ordinarily with a smaller data set give me exactly what I want, it's not going to work. So I did the next best thing. I built a sample of my problem. So imagine on the left are 4 garden stores across different states. And on the right are a whole bunch of food pantries. Now, if I were a human, which I happen to be, my approach to solving this manually would be I would take the first garden store, look at all the food pantries, figure out how many of them are near that garden store, and I would mark it down. I would then go to the next garden store, do the exact same thing over again. And then the next garden store and do the next thing. I can't do that for 16,000 garden centers. So I went to ChatGPT. And I described my problem in plain, simple English. I laid out, I got about this many stores, and the food pantries, in this case, I was calling customers. I'm using Excel 2016 because I'm too cheap to buy the new version. Here's the data in each of my columns. Here's what I want to have laid out. It's important that I know how many customers live within 10 miles of the store. Create a Visual Basic program, which is, for those of you who are not familiar, use Excel, there's a programming language called Visual Basic that you can plop into Excel, and it acts like a computer program within Excel to solve a problem for you. Create this program in Excel that'll solve it, and add comments so I know what the hell you're talking about. So that's what I gave to ChatGPT. ChatGPT created all the code on the left, and just the several screens here on the right show what the stuff was. And you will see it put the comments in there. I actually had ChatGPT solve my problem on a computer scale in the way I would have done it manually. It was a brute force approach, but it worked. And you can see that the ones in red on the top, there were no food pantries within 10 miles. The ones in black below had them. I had my answer for 16,000 garden centers by having ChatGPT write a computer program I could put into Excel to solve a problem that was otherwise too big for Excel to solve. I'll give you another example of how we're using AI. Sean Sherman, if any of you have never heard of him, Google. He is an amazing man. He's a Native American chef in Minneapolis who has a wonderful, amazing Native American restaurant there. And he's become the national face and spokesperson for indigenous food sovereignty. We rolled out a program in 2022 specifically for Native American reservations. It's called ampleharvest.org in Indian country. And it's the same version of ampleharvest.org, except custom tailored for Native American reservations. It deals with the logistical differences on the ground, cultural considerations, etc. And he's offered to do videos for us to help us further promote this into Indian country. But I wanted to write the script so that he would know what to say. And I said, this is what, sir, I need said. This is my use of words into what I gave to ChatGPT. Look him up, know what it is about, keep it to 60 seconds, etc. Wrong way. And this was this wonderful script that ChatGPT put together. I have actually on my team somebody who is Native American. I passed it by her to make sure that ChatGPT wasn't hallucinating. But you'll notice the use of the language in here has nuances that would be specific to people who are indigenous. And it's important if we're going to connect with them that I give him stuff to talk about that would be received well by people regardless of the reservation. Another example of how ampleharvest.org is using AI. Big Idea, the Audacious Project, is an initiative of TED, like the TED Talks. They wanted to know about audacious ideas and how your specific approach would be so amazing, and you have to do it in 250 words. I mean, which is itself a challenge. And we thought ampleharvest.org in Indian country would be a wonderful thing for that because it's audacious. No other food program is doing it. No other food waste program is doing it. So we wrote this. This is the beginning of our entry into the thing. Ampleharvest.org is a nationwide nonprofit that harnesses home gardens' frustration, seeing fresh food harvest wasted to reduce food waste and hunger. That's what my grant writer wrote, and he's a great grant writer. And that's what we would write for any other grant. And I looked at it and I said, that's excellent, but it's not audacious. So we said, ChatGPT changed the tone. And our audacious concept, ampleharvest.org, transforms from frustration. It changed the tone. It made it more in line and in sync with what the Audacious Project would be wanting to see. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but I think this is the proper use of AI to have the tone and the tenor. Excuse me, please. I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Tone and tenor reflect the readers who are going to be seeing it. So here's the fun part of this presentation. As I was working on this, I worked with ChatGPT for some illustrations and pictures. And I just want to walk you through what hallucinations look like. So I said to ChatGPT, please create a photograph of a nursery selling vegetable plants in Bonnie Plant flower pots. Remember, Bonnie Plants is our biggest corporate supplier. It's a major, major name. And right off the bat, it made up its own logo for Bonnie Plants. But if you look in the second flower pot on the left, it actually decided tomatoes don't have to be on the plant. They can just be in the pot. This was AI having an hallucination. It was doing a lot of good stuff and then making up stuff as it was going along. You can see there, the tomatoes are actually in the flower pot. They're not on the tomato plant. So I then asked it to redo it using the Bonnie Plants logo, thinking it would go to Bonnie Plants website, see the logo, and it put a funny face on the bottom in Bonnie Plants, but that's still not the Bonnie Plants logo. So I said, okay, this is the Bonnie Plants logo. Please redo it. And it decided to make a logo on the things that looks more like something out of the British colonies, out of Great Britain. But on top of that, just for the fun of it, said, why don't we put a smiley face on one of the tomatoes? This is ChatGPT hallucinating. And the important lesson here is no matter how you use AI, it's going to have its own ideas, and you need to go through and filter them and look for them and correct them, because I've been growing tomatoes for decades, and I've never had one that came with a smiley face on it. So that is my presentation, and I wanted to keep this fast enough so that there was plenty of time for questions for Mike and myself. So thank you. By the way, again, the name of the organization is ampleharvest.org. If you'd like to see the TED Talk, that includes a shout out from Michelle Obama. It's ampleharvest.org/TED. If you want to see the CNN hero videos, ampleharvest.org/CNN. So Robin, thank you for this opportunity. And I tried to be fast enough. I used my native New York.
You were New York fast, both you and Mike. That's it's a lot of information. And I do want to hear from our audience. If A, you have questions for our panelists. If B, this is helpful to me, this is the most helpful thing, is I ask everybody I encounter, so what are you doing with AI? And the stories are fabulous and fantastic and illustrative. And I think there's a lot to learn. So if anybody has a question about that, or if anybody wants to say, well, here's what I'm doing, we have about 7 minutes.
I have a question. I have a question for Gary. So I just wanted to clarify the AI hallucination. So that's when you tell AI to do something and it doesn't do it exactly the way you want it to. Like I just like a little bit more detail about that.
Do you have any children around 6 years old? You
No.
want them to do the dishes, but they decide to put the finished dishes in the closet. That's AI hallucinating. It has a mind of it. It will do things most of the time very well. I have asked it to write a blog post about ampleharvest.org for a particular thing that I was then going to redo in my own words. And we've trained AI, ChatGPT, about ampleharvest.org. And to be clear, we only work with gardeners. We don't work with farmers. But it decided to use the word farmer in there. So that had to be changed. There were things where I have a friend, I won't give his name out, who for a thought experiment asked ChatGPT to write his own obituary. And it made up a date of his passing, and he was still alive. So while you are doing things with AI, reread it. Or in my case, what I find more valuable is actually I listen to it. I find the ear is better than the eye for hearing when something's wrong, and then you have to deal with it. So at this point in AI, I consider it to be very helpful, but nowhere near 100% reliable. You are there as the final arbiter to fix things that aren't right, like removing tomatoes that have a smiley face or logos that are just plain wrong. And by the way, you've all seen something. I'll remind you about it. 2 months ago, they did an AI picture of Donald Trump kneeling down in a church. It was pushed out by Donald Trump. He had 6 fingers on his right hand. That was AI being a little generous.
Question. I have a question. Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Okay. The way you just described that term for AI, I always thought that meant like I could go into AI and ask a question. And I'm so inexperienced in AI that today I felt like I was, a city school kid going to Harvard, not knowing what the hell I was listening to. So I appreciate all you tried to do. And I'm trying to learn. But I always thought that meant that you ask AI a question and it doesn't understand your question, it'll make
I'm on a call.
I'm sorry, what? Oh.
That was somebody else.
It'll pull out an answer based on a word or two. So an example was used with me with health. Someone asked some type of health question. It had no idea what the person was asking, so it made something up based on a word or two, which gave them wrong health advice. Is that true, what I understand these things as?
Let me answer, Mike, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say
Yeah,
about
so
that.
I mean, like, I use a couple of metaphors when it comes to hallucinations, right? One is that an LLM is like the fastest librarian that there is, using the largest librarian in the library in the entire universe, right? So when you say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it is going to take that and give you the most, what it thinks is the most statistically probable book, like as its answer to you, right?
Okay.
Even though your intention may not have been that, right? Another way to think of it is like when we had mentioned 6-year-olds, right? When you tell a 6-year-old to tell you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you follow the instructions exactly, and you end up with a complete mess at the end. So it's sort of it's a difference between instruction, interpretation, and answer.
So to go back to the point I think you both made, which is what I think a lot of people, especially people under 30, are missing, is you got to go back and check everything because what can go out there could ultimately be as harmful as it is useful. Does that make
Let me give you an
sense?
example of
Do you
something.
agree?
I have a friend who routinely says, I'm on the bus. And just to give her a hard time, I tell her, please get inside the bus. AI could very well hear that as a person physically sitting on the roof of the bus. Your use of language is very, very, very important. I will tell you, my friend who did his own obituary, he said most of the information, and he's well known, most of the information was correct, but there were a few inaccurate things. But the inaccurate things didn't come out of nowhere. He had some overlap of information with other people in his life, and it grabbed information from those people to fill in the gaps. So the burden falls at this point on you, the user, to look at it and to say, is this really the right thing? If a president says to you, use Clorox to deal with COVID, it's your burden to look at that and say, is this the right thing? Same
Or use
thing.
your brain, one or the other.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
want to get political, but I just want to say.
We have one last question. I want Janie Park to yell out her question. Janie, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was just enjoying this conversation. I'm sorry, Robin, I don't think I can do the homework of doing the obituary. I just dropped in the chat actually that there's a trending TikTok trend right now of everyone asking ChatGPT to tell me about my dream life. And normies, as we like to call them, for those who are not into tech, actually doing this and experiencing ChatGPT for the first time. If anyone has a chance or is into TikTok or wants to see what Gen Z is doing, it's very interesting. But for my question, just for a quick intro, my name is Janie. First of all, Robin, Gigi, thank you for putting this on. It was super informative. It was very technical. I come from fashion beauty, so it's a little bit different than what I'm used to, even though I'm into tech and AI and blockchain. But curious to know your thoughts on what are your favorite AI tools? Obviously, there is Gemini, there's Claude, there's ChatGPT. There's more beyond that, but I'm just talking about more of the chat functionality. But what is your favorite one that you're using, and I guess why? And I think Robin, you were asking before about paid. So your thoughts also on paid versus free versions of the AI. Thank you.
I would say primarily ChatGPT because it's the one that I really dove into first, and they seem to continuously come out with new versions and new features, and that's the one that I pay for every month. So, but beyond that, like there's some specialized AI companies, like say like Nomi, Nomi. Another one is I can't recall. But the Nomi creates companions and does an incredibly good job of doing it as like somebody that you can speak with every day. And there's another one that is, I wish I could remember, it's something Rose, that is essentially like not a therapist, but somebody that you can check in terms of your mental health every day as a practice, and then hopefully use that in conjunction with an actual therapist. If I can get the name, I'll let you know, but yeah.
And so after this session, we take this video off of Zoom, we feed it into Opus Clip, which is a video editing AI-based program. It spits out shorts of this hour based on sentiment that it believes will give you the best social response, and then put it out on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, all in about 20 minutes of work. Yes, we do have to check it. Yes, accents, foreign languages, there are problems, but these guys get better and better. We love this program. So
Robin, can I
they're
say
go ahead, Gary.
one quick thing of application I didn't bring up? I want to quickly say it because Robin just reminded me of something. As with our Indian country program, when I created Ample Harvest.org, I was rolling it out to one nation. We're now rolling it out to 326 nations across America. One of the things we're beginning to do, we haven't fully fleshed it out, is make a short video with a script and then have the AI thing create the actual video. And once we're really happy, we can make 326 scripts and have it create 326 videos for us.
Yeah.
That's a great use for AI. It's almost like a mail merge for video.
Yeah. No, I just saw a guy do it on his book tour. He took a synthetic human of himself. He was mocapped. He used Hour One, HOUR one, and then he just turned it into Korean and Japanese. And his book tour, his book blurb announcement went out to the whole world as those issues rolled out. So I think there's so many. Perplexity, I'm seeing in the circle back. We have done other sessions on AI tools. So the more feedback you can give me, robin@robinraskin.com, on the things you want to see, we make them happen. So we are going to close this meeting for now. And I see so many people that we're going to invite back to have their say. Gary and Mike, you are the best. As I said, long friends and smart people ahead of the curve and willing to take other people along with you. We've learned a lot from you. Thank you, everybody. Come back to see Wall Street Green Digital in October, and then back to our regular programming in November.